hold on tight. The champ is here. Mikey is raising the roof. He is loving it.
Let's be real for a second.
Let's be real. I'm excited to be real today. Mikey, Renault, explain yourself.
I don't hate Russell Wilson.
Todd hates T.Y. Hilton. I know why he likes Nick Foles. Do you know why? Because he scored 55 points against them in the championship game last year.
Running backs in Andy Reid's system is just fantasy gold mine. Sign me up there, man.
Yeah, and he's passing for 1,000 too, because his offensive weapons are shit.
Maybe. Oh my God. I can't even believe this, Eric. Todd comes out with some outlandish shit.
Come on.
But that one wins the night.
You deserve the torture of watching those games if you get them.
There's a problem with all those names. None of those guys are good.
Exactly. That's my point. That is 100% my point.
Hey. All I'm saying. Hey, I'm a very unique individual. You know, that's the.
I'm sure all the owners think so.
Oh, man. Just when I think that they're out, they pull me back in.
Welcome to another quarantine edition of the Mile High Affiliates podcast. We're still doing the show from the comfort of our own homes. And on today's show, we'll be talking QBs, the top position in our formats. Who doesn't love a good quarterback? I'm Eric Lansing along with Todd Diamond and Mikey Renault, the usual suspects. It's August 7th, which means we are just over a month from the start of the NFL season. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic for whatever it's worth. But thank God football is right around the corner.
Are we sure it's a month till the NFL season?
Well, as of August 7th, obviously anything can happen here in the next week or two, or we know there's no preseason games. So there's that. So that's already been canceled and taken away. We won't talk too much about that specific notation in terms of no preseason. So we'll talk about that the next show. But anything else? I mean, baseball's back. We're all baseball folks. Are you happy that's at least back? And I mean, Mike's a big NBA guy, and the Nuggets are playing, and the Spurs. So I mean, isn't it just great to have sports back?
Yeah,
Amen.
Cool. All right. Well, before we get into some quarterback talk, let's bring you some news.
To me, the most amazing thing about the news is that whatever goes on in the world, it exactly fits the number of pages that they're using in the paper that day. Interesting concept.
There's obviously a lot of news since the last time we did a show, so we're just going to kind of talk about the top headlines that are going on as of this moment. Obviously, with COVID-19 happening, there are players who have decided they did not want to play this season due to the virus and the complication it presents to either them or their families. So 66 players decided to opt out this season. Yesterday, Thursday, was the deadline for players to decide if they were going to stay or if they were going to stay with the team and play or decide to opt out. So for fantasy purposes, there are only maybe a couple of notes, and you guys can correct me if I'm missing anybody. But obviously the biggest name is Kansas City running back Damian Williams. He had an incredible playoff run, which included that Super Bowl performance. We don't know if he was going to be the starter, but a guy who's been in the system the last couple of years. He was probably the front runner. And then we know that Kansas City drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU in the first round. So with Damian Williams out of the picture, Mikey, I mean, obviously I'm sure you bring Edwards-Helaire up, but how much do you bring him up?
For me, he's round 2, round 3 still.
Not high on him? I mean, it's Kansas City's offense that, was one of the leaders in terms of points per game. And unless you like someone else on that team, he's going to get a majority of the carries and catches.
No, I believe he will, but I don't think he's going to play every down. I feel like he's not a 3-down back, just given his size. So I like his upside, but I think they're going to use the other Williams and Washington and I can't remember the other guy they drafted last year's name at the moment. But, yeah, I mean, I think they're going to use other guys. So not a first rounder for me.
Todd, what do you think? First round?
Top of the second. I mean, as much as I say this all the time to the end of time, but running backs aren't a dime a dozen, and if you can find one that's a starter and an offense that, let's face it, scores 20, 30 points a game, you're gonna want to take a flyer on that. And I know he's a rookie, but rookie running backs, easiest position to translate into the NFL. And the ball off and run. And their offensive line is, is pretty good. Obviously, one of their offensive line, one of their guards did opt out as well too. But top of the second round, I think if anything, you get a steal there.
A steal. Okay.
I think. Yeah.
So let me guys ask you this, and you guys don't have to go in super in depth, but who would you rather have? Would you rather have Edwards-Helaire or Austin Eckler?
Ooh.
I would take Eckler.
Who was that, Mikey? I'm sorry.
I would take Austin Eckler.
Okay. Todd?
I would take Edwards-Helaire.
Okay. How about Edwards-Helaire or Nick Chubb?
I'm taking Nick Chubb.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to go Nick Chubb on that one too.
All right. So as we get closer to the draft, keep an eye on that and see how Edwards-Helaire does. I mean, without those preseason games, that could hurt him. And the other guy Mikey was talking about was Darrell Williams, I believe, in terms of the other Williams on that squad who last year got 41 attempts. So not a lot, but in the mix. In terms of players opting out, the New England Patriots lost 8 players from its squad due to the virus. They lost a starting right tackle, a couple of numerous playmakers on defense, Donta Hightower, and Patrick Chung. New England's defense led fantasy football in points last year, at least in our league, had 47 sacks, 25 picks, and 7 touchdowns. That's definitely a number that should regress, but I mean, are we lowering New England Patriots defense because of this? And Todd, you had him on your team and carried you for a while. Are you going to lower him in your rankings because of this?
Yeah, I mean, and not even the COVID part of it is they lost a lot of key players in free agency. Jamie Collins was kind of an interesting one that they lost. I mean, he was their hybrid type outside linebacker that could play everywhere and you move him around the field. So yeah, I'm definitely moving New England's defense down the chart.
Mikey, I know you're not big into defenses, but I mean, is this something that affects the way you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, they've lost a lot of guys, but part of the other thing is that they're not a good enough team to always have a lead within the game anymore, offensively. So I think that's going to hurt them too. So yeah, I mean, all of it's big. New England's not going to be very good, at least not in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to the quarterback part of this conversation. The only other one that kind of jumped out at me, and if there's someone else, you can chime in, but Broncos offensive tackle Juwan James has decided to opt out. The offensive line wasn't stellar to begin with, maybe average at best. I mean, does this hurt the Broncos offense with them losing James?
Absolutely, it does. It's. I mean, they were counting on him to be there, and I know he was hurt all last year, so you really didn't get to see him. But I mean, that you're talking about starting right tackle, which is the position that the Broncos have had a problem with for what, 6, 7, 8 years, and so now we have to have Elijah Wilkinson back over there. I don't know. I'm just not digging it.
So is that going to hurt the likes of Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay, Todd, with this guy, with James out of the picture now?
I mean, Garrett Bowles better not have any holding penalties. That's all I got to say, is because that's going to go because they're going to go to the left side, because at least Philip Lindsay, at least he knows, Bowles is kind of the anchor there. But yeah, it's not going to help for sure that that James is opted out. So I mean, again, it's for another show, but is Melvin Gordon still high on the running back list on the draft? Yes, because he's still he's still elusive, but it definitely takes a little bit of a hit. I mean, you're gonna have to hope whoever the right tackle is, if it's Elijah Wilkinson or pick from a rookie or whatever. I mean, I think we only drafted or signed one tackle, and so it definitely takes a hit. So you definitely have to. That's you have to definitely watch for. Get look up the stats to see, hey, is this going to really work? Because it could definitely hurt Gordon's and Lindsey's draft stock.
Well, if there was ever reservations I had about the Broncos before, this did not help. So we'll talk more about the Broncos in terms of their talent and their position players a couple shows from now. So the last kind of news that just came out a few hours ago, Darius Geis faces multiple counts of felony charges. We're not going to go into the details of what's going on in that situation because I don't know all the details and who knows what's true or not. All I know is that the Washington football team released Geis today, and so that's going to allow us to draft Adrian Peterson once again. You guys got to be excited about that, right?
Hey, old man Peterson, come on now! Just keep him and Frank Gore. Just keep on going. I'll just say this for Adrian Peterson. I mean, the Redskins did lose. Sorry, the Washington football team.
Now I have to bleep that out. Way to go, Todd.
They did lose Trent Williams, and he was their big left tackle, so that definitely could, put a wrench in there. But hey, AP just keeps on going. So at this point now, I think he's just gonna I don't think the Washington football team is gonna be winning any Super Bowls anytime soon. So good on Adrian Peterson. Keep on going.
Mikey, are we drafting any? I assume Adrian Peterson may get drafted late, but is there any love for Antonio Gibson, who was drafted in the 3rd round?
Oh yeah, and I'm all over Peyton Barber too.
Yeah.
He's not with the Bucs anymore.
No, I'm not drafting any of that hot garbage.
Yeah, might be a tough year for the Washington football team. So, yeah, Darius Geis, who was a guy who was a highly touted draft pick and dealt with some injuries and looked like he was all set to go, and something off the field kind of derailed that. So, is there any other news that I'm missing, guys, that we need to talk about? All right, good. None. We'll keep it going. How about some MHA trivia?
All right, Brain. You don't like me and I don't like you. But let's just do this and I can get back to killing you with beer. It's a deal.
With this being the quarterbacks edition of the MHA podcast, I'm gonna ask you some quarterback questions. Now, I had this long, interwoven kind of talk between passing quarterbacks and rushing quarterbacks, and it got kind of convoluted. So I don't know if I'm gonna do it. So I kind of went with some easier questions. So we'll see how this first section goes. If it's too crazy enough, then I'm not gonna go to the second part. I'll talk with you guys off the podcast. But so from the top 12 scoring QBs in last year, or let me phrase it this way. From the top 12 scoring QBs 2 years ago in 2018, how many of them do you think repeated as top 12 quarterbacks last season? So you're seeing what I'm saying? There's 12 quarterbacks in 2000, the top 12. How many of those top 12 finished in the top 12 the following season? You could just give me a number.
I'll say 5.
Okay, Todd says 5. Mikey, what do you think?
I'm thinking.
Sure. Think away.
I'm thinking.
I'll say 7.
Well done. So Mikey was closer. The answer was 8. Anybody, you guys want to give any guesses? Who did well in 2018? That might be too long to think back, but I'm gonna give the entire answers, but I'll give you a chance for you guys to guess a couple of those.
Matt Ryan.
I'll say
yes. Matt Ryan is one of them. Good job, Todd.
I'll say Russell Wilson.
I'm sorry, that is not correct. Russell Wilson was actually 13th, so he was just outside the 12.
Patrick Mahomes.
That is incorrect because Mahomes didn't finish in the top 12 last season. He missed 3 games and finished 13th.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. How about Jared Goff?
Very good. Jared Goff is on that list. A couple of decent seasons. Seems to be a good standard top 10 guy the last couple of years. Todd, you want to give another guess?
Dak Prescott.
That is correct. So Dak Prescott also. So very good job there. Okay, so in terms of the top quarterback repeating in the last 10 years, so the number one who was the number one scoring quarterback last year in our league? You guys know the answer to that?
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Todd or Mikey, who's your answer?
Dak Prescott.
It's Dak Prescott. And so, he finished tops in the league in terms of point scoring in our system. Lamar Jackson, I believe, was fourth. Let me just double check that. I have that here for us. He actually finished third with 737 points. And Dak Prescott finished first with 771 points. So in terms of him repeating, what's that?
I was going to say it's kind of unfair, though, because it should have been Lamar Jackson, but he didn't play in the last week of the year.
And you could say Patrick Mahomes, who missed 3 games, would have been a good opportunity for him to be up there as well. But that's how the cookie crumbled there. So in terms of a guy repeating the next year as the number one overall scoring quarterback, can you tell me how many times it's been done in the last 10 years in our league when a quarterback finished number one and then finished number one again the following year?
3 times.
Okay. Mikey, do you have a guess?
I'll say twice.
Okay. I'm trying to find it here. So Mikey says twice. Todd says 3 times. It has only happened once since 2010. So in the last 10 years. And the only time, anybody want to guess on who that was?
Peyton.
I'll say Drew.
Who would you say, Mikey?
I said Drew Brees.
And Drew Brees is correct. In 2011 and 2012, he finished as a top overall scorer. He had 940 points in 2011 and 845 in 2012. You had Peyton, who finished first in 2010, then Brees, and it was back to Peyton, and then it was Brees again in 2014, Brady in 2015, Brees again in 2016, Russell Wilson number one in 2017, then Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago, and Dak Prescott as the top overall guy. So just something to think about for those Dak Prescott guys, that it's very difficult. Things happen. People get hurt. Systems change. Whatever the case may be. Dak Prescott, it's a long shot for him to get number one again. So let's get into this quarterback talk. I'm not going to go through the crazy trivia that I had here. I think it would take too long, and we really want to get into these quarterbacks. So I'll start with Mikey first. I know we kind of ask this question every year, but I think it's important for people to understand what kind of the philosophies are on drafting quarterbacks. So for Mikey, for you specifically, do you wait on quarterbacks? Do you try to grab one of those top guys early? Do you even draft 2 of them as a backup, or is it just you draft one and then maybe just wait until a bye week or an injury happens? What is your philosophy on drafting quarterbacks?
I'm a waiter. I'm always a waiter. And then I didn't wait as long last year, and then I got burned for it. So
the 1 year, because he took Andrew Luck in the 5th round, I believe. It didn't work out, and then now you're never going to do it again.
I never say never to anything. It's just kind of how it's how you feel comfortable with how your board is progressed, I would say. Like if Patrick Mahomes is there, like staring you in the 3rd or 4th round and you feel comfortable doing it, then go ahead and do it. I don't have any problem with that. I just usually wait because I feel like quarterback's always like a deeper position than running backs or wide receivers are. So that's just a personal philosophy on that.
Okay. If you're a waiter, do you take a guy in the 10th, 9th, 10th, 11th round? Are you looking to get another one quickly, knowing that not getting one of the top guys, there's a lot more risk with a later guy, so you're willing to draft another one?
Yeah, I tend to do that. I guess it just depends on who the guy is and how comfortable you are with them. But I usually do. If I'm going to take a guy 9th or 10th round, then I kind of follow it up either the next round or maybe 2 rounds after that.
Okay. What about you, Todd? What do you like to go for? Do you like to grab the Patrick Mahomes or the Lamar Jacksons of the world? Or are you going to wait and try to load up on running backs and wide receivers before you get your first QB?
Well, and this is kind of the philosophy has changed, and this is kind of since I've been, I guess, in the league that, it was always quarterbacks in the first round. And obviously that has changed a little bit. I've kind of seen how, everybody in the league is drafted, you, Mikey, and Aaron, and how you guys have kind of drafted when it comes to quarterbacks. And I've kind of seen now that you can really wait, on a quarterback. Now, I'm not saying waiting to get a quarterback in the 10th or 11th round. I think 8 or 9, I think would be like a threshold where you feel comfortable with a quarterback, a number 1 quarterback, at that spot. But I'm waiting at this point. I mean, last year, I think right when I said 8th or 9th round, I think I took Tom Brady in the 8th or 9th round. So obviously that helped for half of the season because it looked like it was cruising along, but that was short lived. So I think I'm waiting on a quarterback, loading up on running backs and wide receivers. And
all right, so yeah, good point, Todd. In terms of you asked a good question. Is it important to get an early quarterback? And I kind of looked at how the playoffs kind of laid out based on those quarterbacks. So I went through Aaron, who's the top team, to the 6th place team. So all these teams made the playoffs, 1 through 6, including yourself, and where they picked their quarterbacks and see if it matters. So Aaron, he ended up picking Matt Ryan in the 5th round, early quarterback. I think that was what I was asking when Mikey got knocked off was, what do you guys consider early for your quarterback? Todd said 3rd. Mikey, what do you think is early?
Depends on who it is. Like if Mahomes in the 3rd, I don't know that that's necessarily early, but anybody else, it is.
Okay. So you can tell me if it's early or not when we go through this. So Matt Ryan in the 5th round to our champion. Runners up, Kilgore Trout. He had Mahomes in the 3rd round. 3rd place was Gonzo Katz. He had Deshaun Watson in the 4th round. 4th place, bye week, Aaron Rodgers in the 4th round. 5th place was Kevin and Eaton W's. He had Cam Newton in the 10th round, and now obviously he got hurt. He kind of went with a Gordon Minshew, Josh Allen, the quarterback from Buffalo. Kind of went back and forth on those guys. And then 6th place was Todd, and he was right. He picked Tom Brady in the 9th round. So, that's just kind of how it laid out. Is it important? Maybe. Obviously, there's a lot of big names at the top there that had some big weeks and could play a big factor. So it's really up to you to decide what you want to do. I've always kind of been personally myself in terms of kind of like to wait on quarterbacks, just in terms of the value of a guy you can get if you're interested in getting a Mahomes or Lamar Jackson in the 3rd or 4th round, and then getting someone of similar Dak Prescott, who was not drafted early last year, ends up being the number 1. So there's value in waiting. And there's also value in picking a guy early because they're going to be great and they're going to have great weeks. We talked about Patrick Mahomes, who was the number 1 quarterback drafted, and he missed 3 games, finished 13th. But obviously, if you do it by a points per game type of scenario, but he had some big games. So it's always something to think about. And our league is kind of from when it began in the 2 quarterback league. It's now different. It's evolved. The way we're playing fantasy is different. A lot of people are waiting. So it's really up to you to decide. I think a lot of it's more of well-rounded team. You can have a great quarterback, one good wide receiver, one good running back, and everybody else is just kind of average or worse, and then that could take you to a championship as well. It just depends. There's a lot of factors involved. Let me ask you this question. We'll start with Todd. Is quarterback a deep position? And if you feel it is, how many quarterbacks would you feel comfortable starting as your starting quarterback? So where's that kind of that cutoff where amongst your guys that you have ranked, and we all did rankings for this, where would you kind of feel comfortable? So Todd, is quarterback deep, and where's your comfortable kind of feeling in terms of where you wouldn't mind having this quarterback as your starting quarterback? If that makes sense.
So, like, where would I want to draft? Where would I feel comfortable drafting a quarterback, or which?
Well, more about comfort. So I'll answer it first. So is quarterback deep?
Okay.
Yes. In terms of where I would feel comfortable, and you guys have my rankings, but I would probably say somewhere in my tier 4, which is the top 14. So guys like Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers, that's probably my least. I mean, like, I'd feel comfortable. I hope that's not the case, but I mean, I would feel okay with those guys. There's enough upside and value at that point. So up to 14 in my rankings, the next tier, which starts at 15, I would not feel comfortable having one of those guys in my starting quarterback. In fact, I'd probably panic if that is really what happened. That kind of starts with Daniel Jones, Phillip Rivers, and David Carr. So for me, it would be the top 14 guys is probably where I would feel comfortable drafting my quarterback. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I agree with you. Quarterback. So quarterback is deep. It is deep now. I think we've definitely seen that through the years now that you can win by not having one of the top guys. Where I feel comfortable, I'd actually feel comfortable all the way down to, I'll say, the top 18 on my rankings, and that's right at Tannehill, Baker, Drew Lock. That'll be one later throughout the podcast. That'll be one of the sleepers or surprises. Jared Goff, Daniel Jones, Big Ben, so forth. When I'm now the bottom 19 all the way to the bottom, not really, Phillip Rivers, Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not a big Phillip Rivers. I've never been a big Phillip Rivers fan. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Exactly. Phillip Rivers is the biggest douchebag on the planet. So, the way he ran his mouth against Jay Cutler, well, that'll never die. Teddy Bridgewater, no. I mean, I put in Joe Burrow there, number 27. Probably going to put him down.
That's okay. You don't have to go through your whole rankings.
Okay.
I just wanted you to go through which guys you felt were comfortable.
Yeah, so the top 18.
Okay. Mikey, what do you think? I know we've talked about it. You think quarterbacks are deep. So, I mean, are you going to wait till 11 are drafted and then pick your first one? What do you think?
Before I answer that, because since Todd went 18 deep, I did notice he didn't rank Carson Wentz.
Oh, Carson Wentz. Also, we also saw that Dak Prescott wasn't on there initially. We had him added to the list, and so now Carson Wentz also missing. Do you hate Carson Wentz?
What?
I love the
what.
What?
So I
What? We'll let him figure out where Carson Wentz is, because he may not be in the top 18. I don't know. For me, I think it is deep, but if you're asking me where I'm comfortable, I'm gonna say 11.
Okay, so not as deep as me and Todd, but go ahead, keep going.
So, like, I kind of stop. I had Kyler Murray 11, Matthew Stafford 12, and I'm not quite ready to put Stafford into that comfortable category just because he's had some injuries over the past couple years. Does that kind of make me nervous? Okay. And the Lions make me nervous in general.
Mm-hmm.
So
I hear you there, Nike.
I'm not a Josh Allen guy. Obviously, Todd is. Never been a Josh Allen guy. Obviously, Todd is. But, the rest of the guys, it's just like, even Aaron Rodgers, like, if I had him, like, I feel like I'm supposed to be comfortable, but I'm not. Like, I'm not anymore.
Well, Mikey's kind of been a Rodgers, I don't want to say a hater, but obviously with Matt LaFleur's offense, he's always kind of been on the outside looking in on Aaron Rodgers, and he was right about him in terms of what the type of offense, in terms of throwing the ball and putting up big numbers. It's not like that. It's not meant for that in Green Bay anymore, and that worked, and I think he understands it worked. They almost got to the Super Bowl, so that's probably in general what's going to happen again. I mean, something could happen, injuries could happen, Aaron Jones could get hurt, and they may need to throw. But I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. But I mean, if he's my starting quarterback, I'm probably okay with it. But continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I just think there's question marks on every single guy after a certain point.
So Mikey's saying up to 11, and so he's got Big Ben 9th, Carson Wentz 10th, and Kyler Murray 11th. All right. So tier one guys. How do you guys kind of lay out your top tier? I'm the only one that actually did a top tier in my rankings, but that's okay. But who should be in that top tier? Is it one guy, two guys? Mikey, we'll start with you this time.
I would say, for me, 8 guys.
In tier one?
Sure.
Wow. Go ahead.
Look, my top 8 guys, I feel like can get me consistently 45 if needed every single week, which is kind of what I would be looking for. 45 to 60 each and every week. 45 is like the low end, 60 on the higher end. And I think all the guys in my top 8 have that boom potential where they easily hit 45, but more than likely they're going to be above 50 every single week.
So I don't even know how to phrase the question in terms of tier one guys. So if you're willing to wait, I mean, you're probably not going to be taking the Patrick Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons. You have Tom Brady as your number 2, Drew Brees number 3, Dak Prescott at 4. So I mean, you don't, as a guy that has 8 guys in one tier, you're probably going to be the last guy taking one of those top guys. Like you're going to take the 7th or 8th guy out of that list because you'll be okay with it. Because tier one, you feel pretty similar amongst all these guys.
That's debatable. I mean, people's list could be exactly opposite of who my 8 are. They could be in a completely different order.
Yeah, but I mean, as we're going through I understand that. But in terms of the draft, if you see, you're right, it could go in any order, but you're okay with that.
Sure.
So if you have Russell Wilson 8th and Dak Prescott 4th, but if Wilson goes 4th amongst quarterbacks and Prescott goes 8, you're fine with taking him 8th or at least last out of the top tier list because you kind of have them viewed in a similar light.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Todd, what do you think?
I have 5 in my top tier
Holy
one,
cow.
and that's
Okay.
just basically I'm just basing off the top 5 in my rankings: Mahomes, Watson, Murray, Jackson, and Wilson. And just because of the fact of all 3 of those quarterbacks, not just can throw the football, but they can use their legs and rush. That definitely changes your mindset a little bit and where you're who you want to draft. And obviously I think those guys definitely are obviously going to go way before I'm going to draft them. But those guys right there, and the way the NFL is now, and just going into reality, the way the NFL is now, those 5 guys, that's the type of quarterbacks you want. Obviously Tom Brady's and the Aaron Rodgers of the world are still the pocket quarterbacks and move a little bit, but the top 5 guys, Mahomes, Watson, Murray, Jackson, and Wilson, those are your top tier guys you want in fantasy.
So Todd went through his top 5. I'll go through Mikey's top 8. And obviously these can change as we get closer to the season. Things obviously change, but as of now, August 7th, Mikey's got Mahomes 1st, Brady 2nd, Breeze 3rd, Prescott 4th, Lamar Jackson 5th, Matt Ryan 6th, Deshaun Watson 7th, Russell Wilson 8th, and Big Ben 9th. I had 2 guys in my tier 1, and the reason why I put those guys atop above everyone else, at least in terms of my next tier, my tier 2 goes 3 to 7. I'll mention those in a second. But just in terms of tier 1, the thing I like about Mahomes and Prescott pretty similarly is just their situations in terms of who they have coming back, both on the management, offensive coordinator situation. Obviously, Dallas has a new head coach, but they brought in they kept Kellen Moore on staff, so I think that helps Prescott. They have incredible weapons around them, incredible offensive lines. The divisions they play in are helpful in that regard. They're going to throw. And so I kind of put those 2 in similar tier 1s. And just to go through tier 2, I went Matt Ryan 3rd, Russell Wilson 4th, Deshaun Watson 5th, Lamar Jackson 6th, and Kyler Murray 7th. So we're pretty similar in terms of our guys we have in the top 7. We just have them kind of listed differently in terms of tiers. Anything else you guys want to say about that before we go on to our next question?
No, I got nothing.
Okay. So let's kind of go through, and I'm gonna ask you guys a question on who would you rather have, and I'll give you two names, and you guys could be on the same side. We didn't determine this before, who had one guy or the other. I didn't put a guy, I didn't designate a guy for Mikey and one for Todd. I just said, who would you rather have? And so we'll go through this, and I'll tell you what I think as we go forward. So and these guys are pretty similar in terms of my rankings, and that's how I have them pretty close together. They're not going to be the same as everyone else's, obviously, but this is what I thought were pretty close. So we'll start with Todd. Between Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson, Todd, who would you rather have? And tell me why.
Oh, this one's tricky because I have Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan 5, and I have Russell Wilson ranked ahead of Matt Ryan. So just for argument, I'll take Russell Wilson. The reason I take Russell Wilson is because a little bit of his mobility and his rushing ability definitely helps now in this age of the NFL. The weapons around him, I mean, DK, I'm going to make sure I say it right instead of saying DJ, DK Metcalf definitely came on last year, and that definitely gives Russell Wilson a bigger target to throw down the field. And obviously when it comes to the rushing part of his game, because obviously the running back core there just keeps getting hurt every 5 seconds, it seems like. But Russell Wilson's proven, hey, he can throw 30 touchdowns in a season, and he can also rush for almost 500, 600 yards, and maybe a couple rushing touchdowns. So that definitely helps his stock a little bit compared to Matt Ryan. So I would say I'd say Russell Wilson. That's why I have him ranked just one spot ahead of Matt Ryan.
All right, Mikey, who are you picking, Matt Ryan or Russell Wilson?
I'm picking Matt Ryan.
Okay.
Game to game, I believe that Matt Ryan's the more consistent quarterback and the guy that I would be able to trust more. I mean, he's got Julio Jones. That's obviously one big reason. But I think the other reason is the divisions. I mean, they're going to have Tampa. They're going to have New Orleans in that division as opposed to Seattle, who's got to deal with San Francisco. The Rams can be a tough defense here and there. I think that helps Atlanta that they're going to be down in games as opposed to Seattle, that they're going to have to throw the ball. So given that, I would go with Matt Ryan.
But are you afraid of his thing with Matt Ryan? Why I was torn is Matt Ryan's interceptions kind of scare me a little bit too. I mean, I've had Matt Ryan on my team twice where he can throw 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns, but he can also have a game where he can throw 3 or 4. Obviously, you had Jameis Winston, so you experienced the full force of that. But that's something that kind of gets me nervous sometimes. He can have really good games, and he can really have bad games. Russell Wilson, he can have bad games too, but his bad games aren't as bad as maybe Matt Ryan's games are sometimes. But that's just.
If you're going to tell me that my quarterback is going to have somewhere in the range of 40 pass attempts in a game week to week, I'm going to go with that guy. I mean, I don't care. I mean, what are you saying is high for Matt Ryan in interceptions? What are you talking about, like 15? I mean, that's nothing.
He's in recent years. He has more than like 15 interceptions. That kind of just it's more of just in the games themselves. Because I agree with you that the attempts and everything are great, and Matt Ryan can go do 40 and above. But it's just sometimes too the interceptions sometimes can just really offset that a little bit and kind of mess up your week a little bit. But I get at the end of the day, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, we are in a point per completion league, and that's just the bottom line for me. So in that scenario, I just believe that Matt Ryan has more value.
And Mikey is correct. I had Matt Ryan a little higher. It's very close, obviously, my rankings, but under Dirk Cutter, who is the offensive coordinator, Ryan has finished first, second, and sixth in terms of pass attempts per year. And that's where the money is at. I mean, while I think Russell Wilson is a more efficient quarterback, they are still a very high rushing team. They would prefer to rush than pass. I'm not saying he's not going to throw for 30 touchdowns, but in terms of if you're he led the league in pass attempts last year, and he's finished in the top, I believe. Looking at my notes here, he finished 5th last year, and he finished 3rd 2 years ago. So Matt Ryan is the answer. Let's go to the next one, and we'll let Mikey go first this time. Deshaun Watson or Dak Prescott, a couple of guys that can run the ball a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dak Prescott on this one, and it's really additions and subtractions for me, because to me they're pretty similar in what they do, but I mean Houston just got rid of their best weapon on the outside in DeAndre Hopkins, and Dallas gained another one in CeeDee Lamb, who I really like. So Dallas, you're giving me a better running game, which I think actually helps the passing game. You're giving me an offensive coach. You're giving me a rookie that already adds to Cooper and Gallup. And in Houston, you got rid of your best weapon. Your offensive line sucks, and you have a coach I can't trust. So that's pretty simple for me.
Todd?
I mean, I'm going to go Watson just because I have him number 2.
So you better explain it up, kid.
Yeah, this is going to be a doozy. Obviously, yes. I mean, the elephant in the room is the fact they lost probably one of the best wide receivers in the league. I get that. Obviously, I was thinking that through when I was like, well, how can I put Watson number 2 when they just lost Hopkins in this? But I think spreading the offense out a little bit. They got Brandon Cooks. And I know the next player I'm going to say, what is wrong with me? But getting Randall Cobb, kind of having that kind of a player that's been there, might help Watson a little bit. And getting David Johnson. Now, I know David Johnson is not the running back of old. I mean, obviously the injury definitely skewed a little bit. But Watson has never had a running back like David Johnson that can, that they can obviously run and catch a lot of passes as well. And I think now I'm not comparing David Johnson to Hopkins by any means necessary. It's comparing apples to oranges. But I just think it's going to be a little bit more well-rounded team for Watson, so you can spread the ball around a little bit more. So understand when Hopkins is there, you want to get it to your best player. And when Hopkins has been there, his numbers are great. But I just think this might help. Usually you always think when the best player leaves a team, you think, oh, it's all over. I don't think that's the case. I think now is Watson going to have that ability? Is Watson going to have that deep threat? Like Hopkins down the field? No, but you're getting Cooks. You're bringing Brandon Cooks in with speed. And I think that was one of the things that you're missing. And obviously the one player I didn't mention because obviously he's injured a lot, but when he's on the field, and we've had him on I've had him on my team, and Eric's had him on the team, is Will Fuller. Obviously a lot of when he got drafted, there was a lot of hopes for him, but injuries. But when he's on the field, he can be that deep threat. Now I'm not saying he's going to be DeAndre Hopkins. Again, I'm not saying he is. But I just think when you're spreading the talent around a little bit more and having more than one option, I think that that helps. So that's why that's why I would pick Deshaun Watson over Dak Prescott. All right, let's hear it.
Well, I appreciate the effort.
You know me, Mikey. I go down my sinking ship, no matter what. So
yeah. You were trying to make that argument work.
Yeah.
I don't know if it did.
Yeah, well, it sounded good in my brain. My brain was like, yeah, good job. I mean, you try to make it work. Like, no, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna end like, but let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Before I tell you who's right in that conversation, Todd, you have Dak ranked 11. So
yeah,
what is it about Dak you don't like?
The fact that they have Ezekiel Elliott there, they still want to run. They still want to run the football. I know they loaded up on wide receivers. I get that, but I don't know.
Hey, Mikey, did they have Zeke on the team last year?
They did, and see, I didn't even mention the motivation part of it on Dak for that money.
That's right.
Watson's got motivation too. Watson was in the same draft class as Mahomes was, so there's a little bit of motivation there too. I think let's put it this way: I think both Watson and Dak probably have a lot to prove, and I mean not prove, but to show, hey, show me the money. So that's just my thing, because obviously, because Zeke isn't the best. I mean, he can catch a lot of passes. I get that, but I think just David Johnson's just a little. But that's just me.
A little what? What were you gonna say? What were you gonna say? He's a little what? Better than Zeke? Are you saying David Johnson's better than Zeke?
When it comes to catching the football, Zeke's the better runner, but just comes to passings, I think David Johnson's just a little bit more well-rounded, whether the injuries or not. So, but that's just.
We already know the answer to this question. It's definitely Dak. As someone who has him as the number 2 overall on my list, they're just. How do you not like Zeke, Cooper, Gallup, and now Lamb? That offensive line is so incredible, where Deshaun Watson is running for his life. Now, the thing I'll say about Deshaun Watson is his volume is going to be great. He's going to have to throw a lot because his team's going to be behind. His defense is not that good anymore. So he's going to have to carry the load, which I feel like his rushing numbers are going to go up. His rushing touchdowns, he had 7 last year. That could 7 to 10. But, I mean, I think that's going to hurt his passing touchdowns. His interceptions will probably go up. You may see fumbles go up because there's not a lot to help him. Now, I like Brandon Cooks. Will Fuller's good. And, they're all deep guys, right? In terms of Will Fuller and Kenny Stills and now Brandon Cooks are all deep guys. Do they have a possession receiver? And Randall Cobb's, 40, 50 years old now? I don't know. There's just a lot to dislike. I don't hate Watson. He's 5th on my list, but I think it's going to be more a volume. In terms of the guy's going to put points on the board because he's motivated. He's got a great team. He's got the same offensive coordinator that did wonders with him. It seems like it's an easy answer for me, but that's how I feel. Let's keep going. Go ahead.
So I just want to ask one question.
Sure.
So next season, like 2021, what quarterback are we going to be saying, well, they got Brandon Cooks now?
That's right. That man can't stay in one place for too long. So you never know. We'll have to keep. Maybe we'll do an outside bet when we talk about our wide receivers on which team will have Brandon Cooks next year. All right, so let's go to the next one here. A couple of oldies but goodies, still pumping out the stats between Tom Brady and Drew Brees. Who went first last time? I think I let Mike go first last time.
Yeah, I went first.
Okay, so Todd, tell me who you like better, Tom Brady or Drew Brees? Who would you rather have?
Ranking wise, I have Brady 7th and Brees 9th. So.
Oh, you're thinking about changing it? Is that why? That's how
because Aaron Rodgers number 8 in the middle, so it's not like it's a total. It's not totally separated. But I'll go Tom Brady just because I think he's obviously definitely going to be motivated a little bit to show the world, hey, I don't need Bill Belichick as my coach, and he's going into a better situation. I mean, obviously, weapons-wise galore. I mean, if he had Goodwin and Evans on that Patriots team, who knows if they'd still be playing right now. Obviously, when Tom Brady's had good weapons around him, and I know obviously Tom Brady's very good, at making mediocre wide receivers or unknown wide receivers look like top tier guys. But this is way back. But in 2007, when he had Randy Moss and Wes Welker, and that team was just flying. I mean, again, Tom Brady wasn't 43 at the time, but I think Tom Brady, you put good weapons around him that and the players around him are motivated. Because Mike Evans and Godwin have to just be like, holy crap, we have a quarterback now that's that won't throw 15 interceptions a game anymore. So at the end of the day, I go Tom Brady over Drew Brees. I mean, obviously Drew Brees has got Michael Thomas. I mean, great offense, but I just think there's just you have two great wide receivers compared to one, and I think Tom Brady just has more to prove. So I would go Tom Brady in this scenario.
So I know Mikey's answer because he has Tom Brady number 2 overall on his list, which is crazy to think. But so tell me, Mikey, why you prefer Tom Brady over Drew Brees or above everyone else except for Patrick Mahomes?
It's really the offense, it's the weapons, and Todd kind of went over it. I mean, he's got 3 pretty decent tight ends. I mean, Gronk, Brait, O.J. Howard. He's got the 2 massive weapons on the outside with Godwin and with Mike Evans. But that being said, I don't hate Brees either. I had Brees number 3. Brees has the best wide receiver in football. And believe it or not, in the 11 games that Brees played last year, he averaged more than any other quarterback that was playing. He was the only one that hit 50 per game.
If Brees would have finished out, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but just while we're talking about it, if Brees would have played 16 games, he would have finished first if he would have averaged what he was averaging while he was playing. So just think about that, how good of a season he was having until he got hurt.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with Brees that you saw, because he had a couple years where he didn't seem like maybe he was himself, and I think it was a couple things. I think they were more of a running team with Ingram there. That being gone helped him. But I also think it was the addition of Jared Cook. Him having a tight end that he could throw to over the middle opened up so much more for him. And you kind of saw him reverting back into what they had when they had Jimmy Graham. And so now them adding Emmanuel Sanders on top of that, I know Eric doesn't really like Emmanuel Sanders. But
Sanders, that's
I think you're going to see
player.
Brees. I think you're going to see Brees being Brees again. You're going to see Brady being Brady again. Kind of fun to watch in that division.
So I mean, you have Brady second, Brees third. I was surprised you had Brees as high as you did. I love Brees. I only have him as 8, but I believe he's a guy that he could pay off if you wait on him. I think the answer is Brees, and it's just because the biggest caveat to it all is that Brady's in a new system. It's going to take a little while. Brees is already in a system he's obviously incredibly familiar with. He's got the best wide receiver. They were third in the NFL in points per game. The team was. I'm not a big fan of Emmanuel Sanders, really, but I mean, you still have Kamara, who's on that team, and then you mentioned Jared Cook. They have an easier schedule than they did last year. I don't know. The only thing that also bothers me about Tom Brady is in the last 3 or 4 years, and I don't know if this is a Bill Belichick thing or Brady getting tired thing, but his numbers always dip in the second half. And so when you need him the most, you know better than us, Todd. You ran with him for most of the season, and it was mostly your undoing in terms of getting a championship because you kept running him out there. And I don't know if it's Bill Belichick in his system, but it just seemed like he was done and it was worthless. You got 30 points, if that, from him because they would run the ball in the second half. They would run it even more because they were just running out the game.
Oh, that's called Old Man in Cold Foxborough in December. That's what that's called.
So, and then sunny tropical Tampa, he's going to be throwing it 60 times a game.
Oh, yeah, especially with Bruce Arians. Are you kidding me?
It'll be interesting to see for sure. We'll keep going here. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say on Emmanuel Sanders, and you got to give me this. There is a difference between Emmanuel Sanders on a good team and Emmanuel Sanders on a bad team.
So you're saying San Francisco was a bad team? They didn't go to the Super Bowl?
No, they were a good team, and look what happened to him after he got there. They took it up a notch, and then they went to the Super Bowl.
Didn't he get hurt?
He got hurt for like a game or two.
I don't know. I don't think he was the reason. I don't think he was rushing the 300 yards in the playoffs to help, but that's just me. We'll keep going here. Let's go to the next guys here. Jared Goff and Matt Stafford, a couple guys that really don't have reliable options at running back, or at least proven options. So, Mikey, out of those two guys, who do you like better?
Ooh, this was another close one. And these guys are right on the cusp of my feeling comfortable range, but I just gave it to Stafford by a hair. And it's really more because Jared Goff annoys me, really.
Annoys you.
I feel without Gurley, they're going to have to throw more in LA. But, man, this one's so tough. Like, Stafford, if Stafford stays healthy, you know the Lions are going to have to throw, and you know he's going to throw a lot. It's by a nose, but I really don't feel comfortable with either guy, to be honest with you. I just don't. Goff is too inconsistent. Stafford's too injury prone. They both have their warts, but I'm giving it to Stafford by a hair.
Todd, what do you think?
I'm going Golf. Matt, anything Detroit? No, I'm not trusting. And at least Golf has at least some more reliable wide receivers than Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Obviously the running back situation, Gurley, that doesn't help. But I like Goff a little better just because of his weapons on the outside, like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, compared to the weapons in Detroit. I'm not a big Kenny Galladay fan. Marvin Jones, I was never a big fan of. So yeah, I'll stick with Goff. I mean, they're both. I agree with Mikey. They're both. You don't feel comfortable with either one of them, but if you had to throw one against the dartboard to pick,
Jesus, guys, you are hateful on these quarterbacks. The correct answer is Matt Stafford, and I'll tell you why. And for Mikey to say he's injury prone, he had started 16 games in 8 straight years before last year. So while I get that he's dealt with injuries, he hasn't really missed games except for last year. Because I think he had something like of a broken back or something the end of 2 years ago, but played through it. And obviously that's going to affect you. But in terms of Matt Stafford, well, I think Goff is like another guy that is full of volume. I agree. They're going to have to pass a lot. In terms of Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, they're not proven guys. I know for someone who reads that Sharp I don't know, the Sharp information, they talk about them changing their system. When they were super successful, they were running 3 wide receivers. And people were getting hurt, and they would try to force it. It didn't work. They would try to go to a 2 tight end system, and it started working a little bit last year. They're going to have to throw, so I think the volume will be there. The defense is not going to be that good, or at least good as it's been in the past. So I think that's going to make them. It's not going to make them very efficient, though. So that's the problem with Goff. If Stafford stays healthy, he was on a good pace. He was a top 10 quarterback before he got hurt last year. He was averaging a career high 8.6 yards per attempt. He had a 6.5 touchdown rate. And I love his wide receivers, honestly. Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay, a couple of guys that can get up and get the ball. They helped his Stafford's average depth of target at 11.4. So I feel, while it's close, because I do like Cooper Kupp, I do like Robert Woods, and Tyler Higbee showed he could be somewhat of a fantasy relevant tight end at the end of last year. So they both have weapons, but they also both, who knows what's going to be for the running backs. I mean, I kind of like Swift, the running back at Detroit. But I think if Stafford could stay healthy, he was on pace to kind of be a top 8, top 9 quarterback last year. So that's why I picked Stafford over Goff. But guys that you would not feel comfortable, obviously.
Yeah.
Let's quickly talk about Aaron Rodgers or Big Ben. I want to kind of keep going. I know we're getting close to an hour here, maybe a little longer. But who would you rather have, Aaron Rodgers or Big Ben? Mike, you go first.
It's Ben for me, not close. Even with the injury last year, I mean, I think what you're looking at is if Ben stays healthy for a full 16 games, like realistically, he could easily be a top 5 quarterback, where I see no scenario where Aaron Rodgers could be. I just don't. Not in that offense. Not with the weapons he has. Like, if Ben's healthy, they're going to throw the ball, and they're going to throw it all over the place. So
Sure.
yeah, it's been by a country mile for me.
Because the Packers decided to go with a backup quarterback as a first-round pick and a backup running back for their second-round pick. So he has Devontae Adams and then the rest. Not much after that. Todd, who would you rather have? Or what did your rankings say?
I mean, I have Aaron Rodgers 8th and Big Ben 12th. I just see it as Aaron Rodgers is gonna want to. I don't know, he's gonna want to throw the ball a lot. He's gonna want to like show like, hey, you guys made a mistake. Now I get it. The weapons are not. I mean, Devontae Adams and you got Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones can catch the ball.
Like he's just shaking his head away. Keep going, Todd. I'm sorry.
It's not up to him. That's the problem.
I understand it's not up to him, Mikey, but I mean, I think he's good. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers is gonna have a gonna do a big middle finger to everybody saying, listen, I can still do it. He's gonna put up big numbers. But here's the thing, and I know with Big Ben, Big Ben obviously has more weapons, has more weapons than Aaron Rodgers does. But I don't know. I think Aaron Rodgers is gonna just have like kind of that chip on his shoulder, but that really couldn't get me just one wide receiver, just one, and I think he's gonna want to prove to everybody. And I think that's I think he's gonna surprise everybody. But I get it, Mikey. I know I get it. It's not really up to him, but Aaron Rodgers. I mean, yeah, we're going more reality here in this conversation, but I'm just saying I think Aaron Rodgers is gonna put up bigger numbers.
So, Mikey, before you go, Todd, learn from me.
Yeah.
Learn from me. I had Aaron Rodgers as MVP candidate last year.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. I thought for sure, I'd say the same thing. He's going to be motivated. The staff doesn't like him. He's got a new offensive coordinator. He's going to come in and prove to everybody that he's still the same quarterback. I think he gets that he doesn't need to be a volume 550, 600 yard or 600 attempt guy anymore. He can hand the ball off. The defense is going to do all the work, and he's going to do just enough. I think you need to follow me on this.
Yeah, you don't understand. Like, why would they change from what they did? Like LaFleur said, we're going to run the ball, and it worked. They got all the way to the NFC Championship. They're not going to change that. There's no point. He's going to call what play is called, and that play is handed off.
Yeah, I know, but I think he's just gonna. I think there's gonna just be times where he's just gonna want to throw the ball just to prove. I understand.
Todd needs to be the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers.
I need the offensive coordinator for every quarterback every player that's on my team.
Man. It's okay, Todd. I get it. You're living in the past. You want Aaron Rodgers to be great. We all want to be great because he's so much fun to watch. But if he was so close to the championship, they're not going to change it. They're going to do what works, and that's what works. He could thrive in another system that does throw it. Like if he went to, I don't know, Houston or Detroit, sure, he could put up ungodly numbers, but that's not where he's at. They have a decent offensive line with a really good running game and a defense that will win games for him. So the answer is Big Ben. It's not close. He's almost kind of a lottery ticket, a guy who's dealt with injuries. He's very much late in his 30s. Tom Brady has the luxury of not being beat up despite being in his 40s. Big Ben is beat up. But they have a top 10 offensive line that is, I think it was more of a freak thing that he got hurt last year. And he's a guy that can easily put up 5,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, and he has decent weapons to do it. So I think Big Ben was the easy question. Let's keep going here. Kyler Murray. Do you guys think now it's interesting as I go through your rankings here, because my question was, can Kyler Murray be a top 5 quarterback? Mikey has him 11th. I have him 7th, and Todd has him 3rd. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't be there. That's just what you think initially. Mikey, can Kyler Murray be a top 5 quarterback?
I want to say yes, but my head says no.
Okay.
And that is just from watching the Cardinals all of last year and their biggest problem was Kyler Murray had to run for his life. That offensive line may have been the worst I saw in the league, and they did absolutely nothing to address it, and one of their tackles just opted out. So as much as I like his talent, I like the way that they want to run that offense, I like their weapons. I think he's going to get killed.
He's just going to get beat up today, or beat up this year.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Todd, you have him third overall. Well, what do you think? Obviously, you think he could be a top 5 guy. You have him as a top 3 guy. Tell me what you think about him.
I think obviously the addition of DeAndre Hopkins definitely helps his stock a little bit too as well. And the fact, and I agree with Mike, yes, the offensive line isn't great. He's running for his life, but he's really athletic, and I think he can get out of it. And I would feel comfortable, drafting him. If Kyle Murray lasted till the 8th or 9th round, I would obviously feel comfortable drafting him. Just knowing what he showed flashes and what he did last year, with a bad offensive line, and obviously the weapons they put around him, and now giving him a big target to throw to. I think Kyle Murray can definitely be that top 12, top 10, obviously top 3. So I think he can definitely be that, because I think that's just the way obviously the NFL is going. I get it. You have to have a definitely situation if you're a mobile quarterback. But if you're a mobile quarterback, that's an extra advantage to you. Because if you're just a stay in the pocket quarterback, like Tom Brady or how I don't know Drew Brees is, yeah, you're not going to be very good. So I just think the mobility definitely helps Kyler Murray, and I think he can definitely show it now that you gave him a big weapon now and DeAndre Hopkins. I'm feeling comfortable where I have him ranked and where I would take him.
Kyler Murray was the first rookie quarterback ever to have 3,500 passing yards, a 60% completion percentage, 20+ touchdowns passing, and more than 300 yards rushing. Only 2 other quarterbacks have done that in general, not necessarily just as rookies. And those 2 other guys were Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. So that's a lot of production from a guy in his first year, learning a system, I guess, that's more college suited than NFL suited in terms of like what they usually run, like 3 or 4 wide receivers. We talk about Kingsbury's air raid offense. I think adding Hopkins helps the offense. He was sacked a league high 48 times, and that doesn't even include the pressure. They were facing the 4th hardest passing defense in 2019, so it's supposed to be a little more easier this year. I think he could still put up decent numbers, but are they going to be consistent numbers? I think once he faces the bad pass defenses, he'll thrive. The ones that can get into your face, like San Francisco, maybe a little more difficult for him. I think he has a talent, but I don't think he'll get there. I think he can be a top 10 guy, not a top 5 guy. I think you're asking him a lot of a guy who looks like he has the ability to throw the ball. You see some quarterbacks that run that can't throw the ball as well. I think he has that ability, but I still think it'll take a year or 2 with a better offensive line to really thrive and really put himself in that top tier conversation.
He's essentially like trying to play Tecmo Super Bowl with QB Eagles when the defense is picking your play every time and getting in there. This is what's going on here.
Yeah, just getting in on every opportunity. I mean, he made the most of it in his rookie year, considering. So I think the talent's there. It's fun to watch him. But I mean, there was games where I had him. I traded for him because Big Ben went out. But there was days where there was people in his face. He had to. He's not a tall quarterback to begin with, so he was having to throw it over big dudes. And Hopkins is going to help that because Hopkins can get any ball that's thrown his way. So I think that's going to help. But we'll see. I think the running game will also kind of help in regards. We saw Kenyon Drake kind of go on a little late in the season. And so if anything, maybe that'll slow down the offensive pressure. Knowing with David Johnson, they were averaging less or just about 3 yards per carry. So when you're getting that, you're just loading up the line saying, all right, beat us, rookie. And so there's that. How about Cam Newton? Can Cam Newton be a top 12 quarterback in New England? Todd, we'll let you go first.
Well, let's see. I have Cam Newton number 19 on my rankings. I mean, I think to some degree it might help Cam Newton to have a coach that has 6 rings and knows what he's talking about, and maybe utilizing Cam Newton's ability, more than maybe than in Carolina. I mean, I get it at a certain point. You don't want to change what you're doing, but I think when you're going to a situation where for a while nobody wanted to sign him, nobody, and we've seen the Patriots, they'll take chances, and now this is a very unique situation because no more Tom Brady. So I think with Cam Newton in that system now, he's not going to have the weapons he had in Carolina in previous years. No, but I just think maybe a new system for him, and he can, thrive and have somebody, utilize his talent, even more. I think he can. I mean, I have him number 19. I mean, obviously he's going into a situation in New England where they're rebuilding. And they have, they're trying to figure stuff out. But I mean, you have Edelman still. I mean, wide receiver they drafted last year, Henry. So you have weapons there, but I think who knows? Maybe a new place usually a new place rejuvenates players too. You never, you have to think about that factor too, but it still can.
So out of all of us, Mikey has Cam Newton. He has him paired with Jared Stidham, but he has him lowest of all of us at 28th. So is there no way Cam can be a top 12 guy, Mikey?
No, I thought the question should have said, can Cam Newton be the starting quarterback of the Patriots?
Well, obviously, I think he's going to be the starting quarterback. So do you think can he be a top 12 quarterback?
No, he can't. I don't think there's any certainty that he's going to be the starting quarterback of the Patriots. Can he? Sure, but I always feel like there's part of Belichick that wants to be right about everything. And I think he's high on Stidham. So I think while everybody wants Cam Newton to be the starter, there's this part of me that thinks when all is said and done, there's not a lot of money invested in Newton, that I think they would just go with Stidham. I mean, what are they really playing for this year?
Nothing.
Okay, sure. All right. So if Cam Newton wins the job, I mean, who would you rather see at quarterback?
Geez, if I'm them, I mean...
No, I'm not asking if what you think or if you were them. You as a fantasy owner, who would you rather have at quarterback?
I would rather have Cam Newton, but even in that scenario, all you're doing is you're putting Cam Newton with the same garbage Tom Brady had last year. So
Tom
it's a
Brady
worse.
Was a top. What was he? A top 10 quarterback last year? He was 8th last year.
Right, and Cam Newton is worse than Tom Brady. So there you go. Now you're getting a quarterback that's not accurate, that's good in the red zone, sure, because he can rush for touchdowns. But, yeah, I just don't like it. No, he can't finish in the top 12. It's not going to happen.
Mikey doesn't even like Cam Newton as the starting quarterback in New England. So that's interesting to think about, too. I think Cam Newton's kind of a lottery ticket.
No, he isn't.
Yeah.
I think for sure that – now, I don't know. We've never really seen a mobile – he's had Tom Brady his whole career, and he's never been a mobile quarterback. So if that's one thing that's stacked against him, I mean, I'm not that familiar with Stidham and what his abilities are, but if you're talking about a guy that ends up being a starting quarterback and he kind of builds his offense around Cam Newton and his rushing ability, I mean, he's rushed for close to 500 yards and 7 touchdowns in 7 of the last 9 years. I mean, you can't ignore those numbers. So if he's going to be able to cater to what Cam Newton can do, that's a lot of upside there. I mean, he wants to win. You don't think he just wants to let go of Tom Brady and just be like, okay, we're going to build for next year? No, he wants to prove to everybody that he still has it. And if he ends up taking this team to the playoffs, that's his greatest coaching year ever, right? I mean, for what he was able to do with almost nothing.
For once, you are right. If he ends up taking this team to the playoffs with Jared Stidham, it is his greatest coaching job.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I want to keep going because we're getting really late in this. I'm going to skip this next question. We're going to go to the sleeper and bust. Instead of giving me two, I'm just going to ask you for one. Mikey, give me a quarterback sleeper.
For me, it's Daniel Jones.
I like that call. Go ahead and tell me why.
I just really liked what I saw out of him last year, minus all the turnovers. So
There's a lot of those.
Yeah, he seems like he's a pretty accurate quarterback for the most part. If they stay healthy, I kind of like, the Giants' weapons. They're going to be down a ton. I mean, there's no doubt about that. They're not like defensively, I think they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. So I feel like they're going to have to throw a lot. But if he gets a full healthy Saquon for the whole year, if Sterling Shepard could stay healthy, if Golden Tate could stay healthy, I like his weapons. I think he's going to get a lot of completions. He was a guy that liked to run in the red zone, which I liked too. So, I mean, for me, he's a guy that I have ahead of those other, guys people are high on. Josh Allen. I have him ahead of Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, guys like that.
Yeah. And just looking over the rankings, we all kind of like Daniel Jones, and you may have taken one of Todd's sleepers away. Even says on his ranking sleeper. He was a guy I liked. I mean, you saw some of the point totals he put up last year: 73, 64, 63, 60. I mean, there were some duds, and there was a lot of turnovers, but he's got a lot of good talent in front of him. He was just the second rookie passer to have 3 games with 4 more touchdowns and had 5 300-yard passing games. And so if they can give any kind of protection, a better protection, because he saw a lot of pressure in his dropbacks last year, he could be even that much better. Todd, I saw you had another sleeper on your list. Do you want to talk about him?
I think it was one, and this is more of a homer pick. It's coming, but Drew Lock. I mean, I know it's coming. But
well, I think a lot of people see him as a sleeper. So I don't think you're the only one as a homer. I'm not on him, and I'm a Bronco fan, but there are a lot of Bronco fans, and there are a lot of people, because of the weapons he has, that he is a sleeper.
Yeah, I think, and he showed, in those 5 games, what he can do, and now the fact, we added Jerry Jeudy, to put on their side of Sutton, Noah Fant. Obviously, we talked about earlier in the podcast the offensive line situation, but I think Drew Lock has, obviously shown his mobility, that he can get out of situations like that, and yeah. But I think Drew Lock. I have him at 16. I think he definitely will. I'll say this as maybe a board bet or just as one of my predictions, but I think Drew Lock will finish in the top 10 in quarterbacks this season. In points.
Mike and I are not that high on Drew Lock. Mike has him 20th. I actually have him 27. In terms of, I'll just give my sleeper real quick. I think Derek Carr is a guy that can finish higher than most people are drafting him at. He's a high completion guy. He finished 8th in completions. If he would just had a couple more touchdowns, he could have easily been in the top 12. He had a career high completion percentage at 70%. He has a decent offensive line coming back this year. The thing that's scary about Oakland is that they're a very conservative offense. They don't throw. I mean, they have Ruggs that's here, and Tyrell Williams are guys that can go deep, but they didn't seem to really chuck it deep that often last year, just based on stuff that I read and some of the games I've watched. But maybe things will kind of open up with a little more weapons this year. I see him as a guy. I mean, he's being drafted outside the top 20. He's a guy that can just, on completions alone, kind of get himself close to that top 12. So maybe a backup option for a lot of people. Mikey, give me a bust.
For me, it's going to be Baker Mayfield. And I actually think that Baker Mayfield is going to be an actual, better quarterback than he's been in his first 2 years.
Why do you say that?
I think he's going to be more efficient. And I think the Browns are going to be a better team for it.
Is that just because of better coaching?
Better coaching. I think the system they bring in, it's more of a run system, so he's kind of in the same boat as Aaron Rodgers. I think they're going to run the ball so much more. Their defense is pretty good. I just don't think that his numbers are going to reflect how the team's doing, I guess, is my thing.
Sure. And I think if you're a good team, and that's like the Jimmy Garoppolo problem, right? Like, I mean, Garoppolo has better upside. He can win a game for you, but they're going to rely heavily on the run and the defense, and you just won't see that in the stats. They can win a few more games, but maybe it may not make a difference in terms of fantasy points. Todd, who is a bust for you?
I'm gonna say Ryan Tannehill. Obviously, I mean, obviously they have Derrick Henry, so they ran the ball a lot. But I think obviously Ryan Tannehill really showed really good flashes of it. And I think people are gonna like, oh, because Ryan Tannehill's fixed now. He's gonna be, he's gonna be able to, repeat what he did last year. He's got good weapons around him. And AJ Brown, definitely, show like he can be a top tier guy. But I think Ryan Tannehill, people are gonna be like, oh, Ryan Tannehill led the Titans to the playoffs. So he's gonna be, he's gonna repeat all that. But I think people are gonna be disappointed because it's still Ryan Tannehill, because he was sitting on the street, and just, and just happened to come in and, and have his great run. But I think for fantasy purposes, people are going to be disappointed. And I wouldn't even draft him, to be honest with you. I wouldn't even draft him as a backup either. Maybe he's on the waiver wire. Nobody drafted him. But I think people are going to be disappointed in Ryan Tannehill.
In terms of rankings, Todd has Tannehill 20th. Mikey has him 21st. I have him 24th. Baker Mayfield, I had him 23rd. Mikey had him 24th, and Todd had Baker Mayfield 18th. One bust that I thought was going to be pretty obvious and wasn't mentioned amongst you guys was Lamar Jackson. Like, I feel like he has the ability to still put up great numbers, but is he going to throw 36 touchdowns again? I mean, is he going to put up the same rushing totals? Do you know how many times a quarterback has run for 1,000 yards in a season?
How many times?
Twice.
Vic's had 3 times, I'll say.
Vic's done it once.
Okay.
Lamar Jackson has done it once.
That's it.
Now for Michael Vick, he didn't get that chance to do it twice in a row because of the off the field stuff that hampered his ability to do so. But that is hard to do. Could he do it again? Absolutely. But then he'd also have to put up 7 touchdowns. They drafted J.K. Dobbins to come in and run the ball a little bit. Mark Ingram is still there. I mean, if you just took if he had 36 touchdowns passing. If you took 6 of those away and gave him 30, which is still a high number, that's kind of the benchmark, right, of a good quarter, or at least a elite quarterback, he would have finished outside the top 12. So I think his numbers are going to regress. He's still going to put up amazing numbers. I still have him 6th. I'm lower than you guys. Mikey has him 5th. Todd has him 4th. But that is video game numbers. To be able to throw that much successfully and to run that much successfully, while he's a hard guy to game plan for, I think it's going to be a little more difficult for him. So we're kind of coming to the end of the show. Is there anything else? Any other guys you want to quickly talk about? We tried to get as many quarterbacks as we could. Is there someone that, man, I wish you really had a chance to talk about before we get out of here? Why do we hate Josh Allen? Let's talk about Josh Allen. A lot of people like him. Todd has him 10th, so Todd's super high on him. Mikey has him, goodness, he must have him really low. Where do you have him, Mikey? I don't see him on your list here.
22.
22. I have him 19th. Like he's a guy that can get you 35 if he's having a good week, 40. But his upside, his ceiling is not very high.
Well, adding Stephon Diggs definitely gave him, gives him another down threat weapon to throw to, because Josh Allen does like to throw the ball deep. I think that definitely helps him, and he's definitely shown, hey, he can, pass and run when he needs to. So I think that gives him a little bit of upside. And I know his ceiling, even coming into the league, people didn't think it was going to be, it was going to hit a certain point and he was done. But I think he's at least shown. I mean, Buffalo hasn't had a decent quarterback since Jim Kelly. So, whatever it's worth. But I think he can. I think, like you said, Eric, I think he can at 35 to 40, points a week. And if Josh Allen was there in the 8th or 9th round, like I said before, I'd be okay with that. I'm not, I know, Mikey, you're 22, but I mean, he's at least shown. I mean, you're basically saying, I don't have your rankings up, Mikey, but would you take? Here's another one: Joe Burrow or Josh Allen?
I have Josh Allen ahead. My problem with Josh Allen is he's too touchdown dependent.
Okay.
Like, I'll never go into games thinking, oh, I'll get 20 to 25 completions from Josh Allen. No, I don't know that. So I just stay away from him. He's got rushing upside, which is good, and it's good in the red zone too. But yeah, I'm just always going to move more towards the guy who I know that even in bad matchups are going to at least get me the completions.
So in points in our league, you finished 17th, despite having 29 total touchdowns. You had 20 passing, 9 rushing. You also finished 26th in completions.
There you go.
And that's in our system. While I get it, Kevin kind of had to use him because he was going back between him and Minshew and was playing the matchups more than anything. But that's just not a guy I'm super interested in. Like, he's a matchup dependent guy. They're another team that wants to run the ball. He's going to run the ball, and the defense, especially if cold is an issue, it gets cold in Buffalo late. And I get Diggs is there, but I mean, do they have a problem throwing deep? I mean, it's great to have another option, but that's not what adds up to points. Like, not every deep ball is going to get in the end zone. It's going to be those dip and dunk, dunks, which Drew Brees has won championships for a lot of people because he's able to rack up 15 points in a drive because he had 8 completions and then finished it with a touchdown. Where Josh Allen, maybe he gets a couple completions, they run the ball, and then they throw it deep. It's tough. I mean, I get it. There's value for him, but only in emergency situations, which I believe Kevin was last year. All right, so I think we got to a lot of quarterbacks. We've talked about Bridgewater in the past and the previous shows, so I think we're good to go here, guys. And the next time, and obviously the season's coming up quick, so we might have to do some more shows, but maybe next time we'll do running backs. That's obviously a big position for people to think about, and probably the first couple of draft picks are going to be running backs. And you guys excited to talk about some running backs next time?
Yeah. I mean, the way running backs now are, so important in fantasy. Yeah. I mean, in fact,
running backs are always fun. We always get into some sort of argument about Derrick Henry, and unfortunately, I was on the wrong side of that last year. But we'll see where I stand this time.
All right. Well, cool, guys. Thanks for taking the time out. You guys stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time on the show.
All
right. Sounds good. So for Eric Lansing, Todd Diamond, and Mikey Renault, you've been listening to the MHA podcast. We'll see you next time.